All right, Mark. So, if you don't mind, let's just start off with your background. Just give me a little bit of a sense of, what you've done for your career. If you want to mention your family
Sure.
life, where you grew up, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's actually funny, right? I don't think a lot of people often hear me talk about my family, but I'm blessed with a wonderful wife. Corinne's a preschool teacher. I call her a superhero because, frankly, she manages a lot. We're a blended family. I have two children from my first marriage that live with us, Abigail and Jack. Abigail, as most people know, was born on the autism spectrum, receives Medicaid-related services for her disabilities. My son Jack's a great soccer player and 15 years old. And Corinne and I have two children together. Eli, who's going to be Tiny Tim in the local theater production this December, and Theo, who we have to dodge Nerf bullets from quite often. We live in Catskill, New York, and we're like every other family. I tell people this all the time. If you see us at the grocery store, we want you to ask us questions. My wife will say if we didn't want to talk to people, we'd stay home. But we're usually the ones with the two grocery carts because we have four kids. And we're like everybody else, spending a lot of money for a little bit less in return, right? The costs have gone up and groceries have gotten smaller. But I was raised also in a blended family. My mom was single. My parents divorced when I was very young. My mom was single for a number of years. We were pretty poor. Grew up a little bit on food stamps. My mom will tell you that I raised myself, which is not true, but because she had undiagnosed depression, there were just challenges we had that we didn't know about. And I thought every kid's mom slept till noon on Saturdays, or when the electric company called looking for payment, I thought this 10-year-old was supposed to take the phone calls. I'm blessed to have a wonderful stepdad who came into our lives, and he actually lost his job at IBM, one of the first layoffs of IBM when they downsized. Hundreds of thousands of jobs left the state of New York. It was really obviously a very difficult time for a lot of people. He's a great mechanic, taught us to work hard, respect people, and I wasn't allowed to get my driver's license until I could change the oil, change the tire, and drive stick shift, which I'm happy that I can do. But most everyone else knows the rest. I interned for a state assemblywoman, a Democrat, and she encouraged us to get involved. I started volunteering in my hometown, and as an 18-year-old, I thought, what the heck, I'm going to run for the village board of trustees, and I did. And the year later, I was elected mayor of my hometown. Served 12 years as a mayor. And I tell everybody, you learn a few lessons. Number one, when the roof leaks on Republicans and Democrats. Your viewers have heard this before. The other, though, is you learn that the decisions you make in government have real impacts on people. And that, thirdly, the job of government is simply to fix the roof. And I take those lessons with me. By the way, it wasn't a part-time responsibility for me. When there was a water main break, I was in the water. I was trying to fix it. When there was a sewer blockage, I tried to fix it. When we had to do garbage collection or big celebrations, or in 1997 when we had a young woman and her daughter raped in our community, we had to respond as a community and protect her and others. Everything from economic development to parks development. I really learned a lot. And I use that experience now as a member of Congress. There is no one who serves in Congress today from the state of New York who knows more about the way state, federal, and local government interact, or the layers that need to be uncovered in order to make it work good for people. And I use all of that, both as a village mayor, as a state assemblyman, as a county executive for 12 years. I use all of that experience to leverage on behalf of the people I represent.
All right, let's get right into what you think are the most important issues in this campaign.
Well, I never tell people what should be the important issues to them. I mean, I think fundamentally, too many people run for office. They spend a lot of money. I mean, my opponent's spending like $20 million hiding behind TV ads, and they sort of run it out of a handbook, right? I meet people where they are and listen. And so for some, we'll talk about the big issues certainly, but for some of the people I represent, services for those with intellectual, physical, and developmental disabilities, big priority. I deal with STIC, I deal with Gigi's Playhouse, a lot of the local service providers, and I'll tell you, for them, that's the most important issue. The system doesn't work. There aren't enough opportunities, which is why I'm leading in a bipartisan way to create opportunities and break down barriers for those with disabilities. For others, it could be struggling with substance use disorder, addiction, and mental health. And I work with the local organizations here and partner with folks like Jason Gardner and Donna Lapardo and others to make sure that the resources are available for treatment, and Sheriff Akshar to make sure that there's dollars for law enforcement intercede in drug trafficking. Without question, people are upset about what they see at our southern border. They see this administration and they see policies of both the governor and the president, all of which Josh Riley has embraced for the last 20 years. No matter what the TV ads say, my opponent has spent the last 20 years working in Washington, D.C. on the side of those who've been fighting to dismantle border security, on the side of those who've imposed sanctuary city policies on us. And because of it, we have 10.5 million people who've poured into this country illegally, many of which are criminals. DHS says there's as many as 600,000 known criminals living in our communities around this country. That should never have happened. But they used the Josh Riley legal playbook to abandon the border and welcome people in. And then they took your tax money. $5 billion of New Yorkers' tax money. Kathy Hochul, Josh Riley, Eric Adams, and all those others who say one thing, but then they lobby on the other. They took $5 billion of your money to put people who've entered in this country illegally in hotels, to give them credit cards. And yeah, my opponent helped draft a piece of legislation, a bill in the United States Senate when he worked there, that would have given Social Security benefits to those that have entered into this country illegally. It's just not fair, and people are upset about that. But they're also upset about the economy, and understandably. We live in a part of the state with the highest burden of taxes. People know this. You pay high property taxes, high energy costs, you pay high grocery costs, and it's because Washington, D.C., when they had single-party rule for 2 years, didn't care. They spent money they didn't have, and they ran up the bill. And yeah, you know what? I hold Republican and Democrats responsible for that. When I was in local government, I had to balance my budget, and it's why I led in a bipartisan effort to deal with the debt ceiling crisis, but also to cut federal spending $2 trillion over 10 years. Largest reduction in federal spending in generations. And it's why I'll continue to lead to be sure that your dollars aren't wasted on programs that house illegal immigrants in hotels in New York City when we've got veterans who are struggling in our communities, when we've got children who need better schools, and we have families that need more affordable housing. And so the cost of living and the safety and the quality of life of our communities is always what people talk about. But again, I meet people where they are. Whatever's important to them is what I'm going to be fighting for, because that's the job.
Your opponent has criticized you for not supporting the bipartisan compromise on immigration. Why not? Why didn't you support that bill?
Well, first, it doesn't solve the problem. The bill that Josh Riley supports would take $750 million of your money and continue to give it to people who've entered into this country illegally. The bill that Josh Riley supported wouldn't provide for a strict border security. It would actually allow millions of people to continue to enter in this country. And the bill that Josh Riley supported doesn't allow for deportation of criminal illegals. And so why would we support a piece of legislation that codifies the problem? I mean, Josh is trying to play it both ways. He spent the last 20 years as a lawyer in a politically connected law firm in Washington, D.C., fighting to end border security and supporting sanctuary city policies that have made us less safe. The bill that Josh Riley supports doesn't deport criminals, doesn't secure the border, and continues to steal tax money from hardworking Americans and New Yorkers and direct it to housing, credit cards, and cell phones to people who've entered in this country illegally. The solution is to stop the flood of people and fentanyl entering into this country. The bill I support would secure the border, would give dollars to Border Patrol to do their job. Border Patrol supports me for re-election because they know I'm taking this seriously. It would end sanctuary city policies, and it would force the deportation of individuals who have come into this country with criminal backgrounds. That Peruvian gang leader, 23 murders from Peru, ends up in Endicott, New York, arrested in Vestal, New York. Thank God for law enforcement. Should never have entered this country. And the reason he was able to is because politicians like Josh Riley spent years dismantling a border security, fight for this thing called catch and release, meaning they don't have to enforce the law and they choose not to, and then people flood into this country. That's the reason we have the crisis we have. And then to support people like Kathy Hochul, or to have her pouring money into this campaign on Josh Riley's behalf when she's the one stealing $5 billion from school kids to house illegal immigrants in New York City. No, it shouldn't be happening this way. We need a safe, fair immigration system, but it starts by securing the border.
Another major political issue right now facing us is reproductive rights.
Indeed.
What is your stance when it comes to laws governing abortion in our country?
I want women and families to know this. First, the lies coming out of Josh Riley's campaign are just so overwhelming and dishonest, and I know that it's hard to cut through them. I believe that when it comes to reproductive health and health care, that the decisions ought to be left to a woman or physician. That is it. I respect women and the decision that they must make and they choose to make. And for me, what that means is ensuring that I have and will continue to oppose any ban on abortion or any effort by Congress to ban abortions in this country. It means I will continue to protect the rights of New Yorkers. I will, as the first Republican, continue to fight to codify access and protection of IVF, which I know is heart-wrenching for many families. And despite the ads, have led in protecting access to over-the-counter birth control, mifepristone. Josh Riley has a TV ad that says, "I oppose the very bill I sought to sponsor." Think about how dishonest that is. He has a TV ad that says, "I oppose accessing birth control and a bill to protect birth control," the very bill that I seek to sponsor, the very piece of legislation that I voted for when I was in the state assembly, accessing and ensuring over-the-counter access to birth control. I have led in protecting and blocking any efforts to block access to both reproductive health and birth control, and yet his ads continue to say otherwise. It's dishonest. I will continue to stand up for and respect women. The other thing is I care very deeply about the families that live in upstate New York. This district lives in many ways in a healthcare desert. We have certainly great healthcare institutions throughout, but if you're living in the rural communities of upstate New York, accessing healthcare is a challenge. I lead the bipartisan coalition, Republicans and Democrats, to expand federal support for federally funded health clinics and telehealth and telemedicine. Everything from reproductive health to traditional physical health to behavioral and mental health services. I lead that effort and have fought for increased funding and capacity so that women, families have access to quality health care and can make the health care decisions that they wish to make. But again, the decision ought to be left to a woman and her physician, not Washington, D.C. It's how I vote, it's what I believe, and it's what I've been fighting for.
But does that mean that you support abortion being legal in some form?
Yes. Yes, because ultimately, and will continue to ensure protection in New York. I mean, this is the saddest part of all of this. I mean, I know it's hard to cut through the TV ads, and maybe even this interview might not change many minds, but yes, I've always supported the right of a woman to make that choice. Certainly this issue has evolved over time, but we are in a position now where I have been very clear. I have not, I will not, and I won't support any effort by Congress to infringe on those rights. And I will fight to ensure that women have the ability to make that choice between them and their physician, no one else. And that's what I believe.
Let's move on. One of the things that, one of the other criticisms of your opponent is that you are a career politician. How do you respond to that?
When Josh Riley points to me and says that I'm a career politician, I certainly hope the other four fingers are pointing back at a career corporate lawyer who has worked the halls of Washington, D.C., dismantling border security, working for a United States senator that he crafted a bill that would give taxpayer Social Security benefits to those who entered into this country illegally. It is the laziest of arguments that people make, and I take issue with it. I've spent every day of my adult life trying to make government actually work for people. I know more about how to fix a water pipe, how to reform Medicaid, and how to revitalize economies because of the experiences I've had. When politicians all around upstate New York, when they have a problem to be solved, they call us. Why? Because we've created the relationships. I know the people, and I work with anybody to get the job done. And so for me, I use my experience on behalf of the people I serve. I believe in term limits. As first county executive to impose 12-year term limits. I have consistently upheld ethics standards. In fact, rewrote ethics laws in my county to be the strictest in the state. And I don't believe that politicians like me or Josh Riley should own stocks or be able to trade stocks. I don't own any. You don't know what my opponent owns because he doesn't have any transparency. He didn't tell you where his income comes from. He didn't tell you what stocks he owns. I believe in these standards because I've seen the ugliness of the corruption here in New York. Single party rule in this state has corrupted this state government, and I've been fighting it every day of my life. It's a lazy argument. I believe in making government work for people, and I will use every experience, every relationship, every partnership on their behalf to get the job done.
What do you think of the tone of this campaign?
Listen, this is a very heated election because both parties see it as a key to the fate of the House and the fate of America. And I think voters at home, I would be just as frustrated. I don't like seeing all the ads. I don't like seeing the negativity. In fact, most of the ads I pay for are me looking into the camera. One's with my mom talking about protecting Social Security. And I tell people, my mother's an Italian mother, and those Italian moms out there, they know what I'm about to say is true. If my mother thought I wasn't so good, she'd be telling you in the TV ad that I'm not so good. The other, me making a pizza, looking at you saying, this is what I've worked hard my whole life. I was raised in a working family. We raise our kids together, struggling like everybody else. And I just want this, I want things to be easier for folks. I want it to be more affordable and safer. I don't like the negativity. I never have. And I try personally to uphold a standard of working with people. And I'll listen to anybody, Republican, Democrat, whether they agree with me or not. And so I'm always interested in breaking through. I'm the second most bipartisan member of the entire House of Representatives, the second most bipartisan member, and the fourth most productive. I've passed more pieces of legislation than anyone else but 3 in the House and Senate because I think you cut through the noise and get the job done on behalf of people. But I feel it, believe me. I joked with the one of the postmen in Endicott. I said, you probably see me more than my kids see me because my face is on the mailers. I don't like any of it. But what I don't like is the dishonesty that Josh is engaged in. Listen, I understand both sides can be criticized, but his ads are funded by dark dollars, George Soros money, and they're based on total lies. I mean, I've dissected a few of them already. Just total lies. It's just not the way to run. But I think that ultimately, this is the 3rd district he landed in to try to run, right? He was going to run in Syracuse, couldn't win there. He was going to run in Claudia, Tennessee, couldn't win there. He dropped here twice. And I think he thinks the only way to win is to funnel millions of dollars to buy a district. I don't happen to agree with it.
Yeah, speaking of that, what do you think about the vast amount of money spent in this campaign?
Well, I won't speak on your behalf or on behalf of the station. I'm sure that you don't mind so much. I do. I think, I've always believed there actually should be limits on the amount of money that can be spent on races because it's absurd. I mean, ultimately it's absurd. But truly, when you're doing this job, remember the day that Josh Riley conceded to me 2 years ago after beating him, he began his campaign for this office. And they spent more money on my race even before the campaign than any other seat in the country. Think about that. And this nonsense that he doesn't take corporate dollars is total BS. It's these funds and these groups that are paying for those ads. Everything from the ridiculous mailer you get, that calls me a career this, or you see the TV ad that, or the digital ad that in your heart just isn't true. It's all funded with dark money. What's dark money? It's big donors from Hollywood, Los Angeles, from New York City, from Washington, D.C. It's corporations, and they put their money in these organizations. Why? Because they don't have to disclose. They don't have to tell you where the money's coming from. If Josh were being honest, he'd simply say that, yes, corporations are funding his campaign too. The very people he worked for at his law firm in Washington, D.C. are funding his campaign too. But I've always felt that there should be limits on total spending because there's no reason to spend this kind of money. It's a complex that feeds itself when truly I think the best part of campaigning is being out on the street, connecting with people, listening to the folks you serve and represent. I do that every day. I mean, we did 11 counties one day, but we've done it every day. You know this. We are everywhere, me, my team, because we want to meet people where they are, listen to them, try to answer their questions, and help solve the problems that face us.
Why do you want to go back to Washington?
There is no more important task at this moment than making this federal government respect the people it serves. That means, by the way, securing our border. It means driving down cost, and it means taking seriously crime in our communities. I want this federal government to pay attention to Broome County and to the Southern Tier and to Central New York and to the Hudson River Valley and to the Catskill region and to the Capital District, this glorious part of the state that too often gets overlooked. I didn't leave New York and just decide to come back and run for office. I've been in this community, and the reason I'm fighting to continue to represent the people of this district is because, one, it is an honor unlike any other, and we need somebody who knows every layer, who knows every community, who knows every twist and turn of upstate New York and the policies that have made us either better or worse, and fight hard for us. I'm running because I think the people of upstate New York and this district deserve somebody who's going to work damn hard on their behalf. At times, is somewhat pissed off when they see policies that make us less safe and less affordable, and is going to use his passion to speak for people who don't often have a voice, like those kids with disabilities, like those moms living with depression, like the ones living with substance use disorder. I'm running for re-election because I want to keep fighting for the people I represent.
All right, I always like to finish with the same question, and sometimes it does call upon folks to repeat themselves, and that's fine.
I'm very good at that.
Most ultimately, the most key question: why should people vote for you?
I care. I mean this sincerely. I care if you're at home struggling to pay your car payment. I care because I lived that life too. I care if you are a farmer and are tired of seeing the state and federal policies make life more difficult for you. I care if you're that school kid who's going home and you're not too sure, like I was. Is my mom okay? Is my dad okay? Is my friend living with an addiction? I care if you're the small business owner who's tired of having regulation on your back and making it more expensive for you. I'm tired of paying too much in electric costs, and I care deeply that you're tired of paying too much for electric costs too. I care that our communities deserve to be safe, that our border needs to be secure, and that we have to drive down costs to make ourselves more affordable again. I care in protecting our natural resources, our human resources, and our potential. I care deeply, and I ask people, please give me the honor and the opportunity to continue to fight for you.